You know the vibes. Welcome back to another episode of the Hoop Genius podcast brought to you by NBA 2K25. It's myself, Mooncey, alongside me as always, the three-time NBA champion, Mr. BJ Armstrong. What up, though, B? What up?
Hey, what's good, Mo? How we doing? How we doing?
Hey, we're blessed. We're blessed. It's another day. The sun is starting to shine here in the UK. The
Yes.
NBA season continues to roll on. The playoffs are fast approaching. We watched some
Yes.
fun basketball games last night, and I got a couple I want to talk about today.
Okay, let's
Couple
do
that we
it.
need to break down because I got some serious worries right now,
Okay.
and I'm worried about one of my favorite players, and I'm not worried about him. I'm just worried about the situation that he's in because I feel like some of the prime years of his career are being wasted away, and that player is Giannis Antetokounmpo. The Milwaukee Bucks lost last night to a Steph Curry-less Warriors team, and I'm not panicking because of this one game in particular. I'm just looking at the entire situation and thinking, all right, cool. The Bucks are 8 games over 500. They're the five seed. They're below the Pacers now in the standings, who had an awful start to the season. I'm looking at the Bucks, and for me, they're not in the elite caliber of Eastern Conference teams, the Celtics and the Cavs, and maybe even the Knicks if you want to put them in there. I'm just looking at the Bucks, and I'm thinking, aside from saying we have Giannis, I don't see anything else that makes me think that they're a serious contending basketball franchise. And, over the years, they won the championship, and we were talking about, wow, like, they've won the championship. Giannis can cement himself as one of the best players of all time. And it's unfortunate how many injuries Chris Middleton had. But you traded away Drew Holiday for Damian Lillard, who is an offensive upgrade, but a major defensive downgrade. The role players on your team significantly worse than the players that were on that championship run. You've lost Bobby Portis. He had a positive drug test, I believe, so now he's not there. You've traded for Kyle Kuzma. That has absolutely not worked. And I'm just looking at it like, what are they doing? I watched the game last night. The fourth quarter offense from the Bucks, and we've got to credit Draymond Green for his amazing, still at this point of his career, being one of the best defenders in the world and essentially being one guy who can shut down a whole team. But the offense for the Bucks looked absolutely stale. I don't know if Kuz made a bucket in the fourth quarter. I know like Giannis was like 0 and 6 down a stretch, and Dame struggled as well. But I'm just looking at this team and I'm like, you're supposed to be championship contenders, or at very least contenders to win the Eastern Conference if you're not going to win the whole thing. But I'm just looking at them and thinking you're not anywhere close. And it's not a recent thing. They had a nice stretch after the All-Star break, but throughout the season, the same issues keep coming up. The offense to me looks very stale with what they're doing. I don't know if Giannis is struggling a little bit with the injury or something right now, but he hasn't looked like he's got the same kind of burst right now. And the team last night just played with such low energy against a team missing Stephen Curry. That should have been a win for them out west, but they ended up losing. BJ, are you worried about the Milwaukee Bucks, and how are you looking at their current situation?
Well, when you look at the way this team was constructed, right? You're missing two important ingredients. First, you're missing Chris Middleton. Chris Middleton was a very important part of this team, the way they played, and then he allowed them to play with the identity when Giannis wasn't on the floor on the offensive end. And the beautiful thing about that combination was he was capable of playing alongside Giannis, and he was also capable of playing without Giannis to carry the load, especially on the offensive end, which was great. And then you throw in Bobby Portis in his situation here, and now suddenly you have a problem. Am I concerned with this team? Any team that has Giannis is going to have the expectations to compete for a championship. But when you take possibly two out of your top three players out of the equation, then this is what you get. Okay, that's what it is. Now, I think if Bobby Portis was there, I think he impacts the game. And I think he helps them win more games probably than they've won thus far. I'm not saying that's the total answer, but I think when you take a player like that, because he was their best player coming off the bench, and he provided for them defensively stability. He allowed them to play small. Remember, Mo, a lot of these teams play small, like Draymond Green, for instance, last night playing the center position. Now Bobby Portis does that.
Even when it's not Draymond playing the center, even when they go big and they play like Quinn and Post or Looney, they were able to have them their bigs or kind of their weakest perimeter defenders guarding Kyle Kuzma. They were happy to sag off Kuzma to try and wall off Giannis and just live with Kyle Kuzma, either getting open shots
Well,
or
yeah, I
trying to
mean,
try to
those
close out.
now you're talking strategy. Okay, we can make adjustments. I'm not worried about any of that. You have to have personnel. When you take Bobby Portis and Chris Middleton out of the equation, and you've changed the identity of your team. You went suddenly from a defensive-oriented team with Drew Holiday to now an offensive team with
Damian Lillard.
Dame Lillard. Okay, so when you do that, there's a lot going on here.
Yeah.
There are a lot of moving parts. Now, when we say all of this, so what does this mean? Well, you still have Giannis. Well, the game is probably going to slow down a little bit. Maybe they're better. If you would say anything to me, I would say the following. This team, as I look at it, they're currently constructed more really for the playoffs than the regular season because they're not a team that plays at a pace that we would normally like to play at during the regular season. That's not what they do. I was watching them a little last night. They've basically trying to find a way to utilize Dame without having him be the guy who pushes the pace, distributes the basketball, and shoots the basketball. So now they're putting the ball in multiple players' hands because they really don't have that player who can push the pace during the course of the regular season. Doc is trying to figure it out. However, we said this very early in the season, at the beginning of the season. This team, they're trying to get younger. They need to get younger and infuse some youth into the organization or to this team so that they can play the game at a pace that's necessary to get through the regular season. With the exception of Giannis, okay, I don't really know who else is on their roster as of right now, okay, that can really play at that pace. You got the kid Porter Jr. I think he's young enough. But who else?
Yeah,
Who else? I
he's kind
mean,
of like a sixth man coming off the bench. You've got AJ Green, who's 25. You've got Andre Jackson, who's 23. But these guys aren't of the caliber of a championship team, with all due respect to them. And like
yeah.
with Damian
Well,
Lillard,
that they can be, but they can. But that's what I want to say because the regular season is different than the post.
yeah, okay. But the point I'm making is you got a preview last night against the Warriors of the strategy that teams will employ. They're throwing two defenders at Dame to get the ball out of his hands. They're walling up against Giannis, and they're happy to just live with the other guys
But
taking
do you?
shots.
But here's the thing. Okay, I think Doc Rivers has been around long enough to say if there was a game two, he'd probably make some adjustment. The teams are going to adjust. They're not just going to say, "Well, see what they did. We're going to lose the game." And no, I think they would adjust.
What adjustments would you make?
The adjustments are simple. You put Giannis, you catch the ball, you put him in the middle of the floor, you figure out defensively the matchups that you want. There's a lot of things you can do. It's just a matter of, okay, this was their first game, probably. I don't know what their schedule is right now, but this is probably their first game on a West Coast road trip late in the year. They're missing play. Bobby Portis will be back. Kyle Kuzma, he's played, 15 games there thus far. There are adjustments. Kyle Kuzma, don't settle for 3-point shots or whatever the case may be. You can make adjustments. These guys, when I say these guys, these coaches are really good. These coaches can figure all of this out. And more importantly, these players will figure it out. So we can't look at this from the eyes of like a video game. Say, well, this is what they did, and the video game just continues to do the same thing. No, these players will adjust. If you're going to win in this league, the most consistent way to play is your defense has to create your offense. Now, if there's one thing that's been consistent with this group in Milwaukee, is they haven't been a very good defensive team since the departure of Drew Holiday. We could talk about the offense, which is fair, but defensively, when you have a Drew Holiday that leaves your team, he was the core of who they were, or one of the core pieces with Giannis. They gave them an identity when they didn't shoot well because they didn't rely on their offense to win games. They had Drew Holiday, they had Defensive Player of the Year in Giannis, and then they had Brook Lopez, who was the runner-up Defensive Player of the Year. That's what they're missing right now. Lopez isn't the defensive player or the schemes that they were running just 2 years ago with 2 or 3 years ago when Butt was there. So they changed that.
36 and he's had back injuries.
Then all of a sudden you lose Drew Holiday, your primary defender on the ball, and he could guard multiple positions. And then you had Giannis. So that is what we're missing. They haven't been able to consistently figure out who they are on the defensive end. With that, you see the inconsistencies of everything else, how they're going to play offensively, who's on the floor, what are the rotations, so forth and so on. They miss their defensive identity and their defensive presence. That's what we're seeing. So if there's anything for us to learn about this group, your best player, Giannis, clearly, he's a phenomenal player. He's putting up massive numbers again this year. But defensively, if there's anything that we probably, which is fair criticism to this team, is defensively, they haven't been the same since the departure of Drew Holiday.
Yeah.
And that's what we're seeing here. Regardless, Damian Lillard is an amazing offensive player. But if we're going to be consistent and say what's the missing component, defensively, they haven't been the same. Absolutely. And so now where they've been very inconsistent in the way they play.
And as amazing as Dame is, or his reputation is, he got outplayed by Brandon Podziemski last night. And this shows up, when the Bucks face the top teams in the league, I think they're 0-3 against Boston, 0-4 against Cleveland, 0-2 versus OKC, 0-2 versus New York. I don't know if that's indicator of just exactly where they are in terms of competing in the Eastern Conference or in the NBA in general, but this is a team that could very well be a first round exit in the playoffs. They're only half a game ahead of the Pistons. So if the Pistons overtake them in the standings, it will be a Bucks and Knicks first round series. And I wouldn't like that very much if I'm a Bucks fan. And
why not?
Because I think they would lose.
Okay, I was just wondering why you thought that.
Because I think they would lose in the series against the Knicks. I think they'd lose. I think they would get destroyed in the series against the Celtics or the Cavs as well. So you're really hoping that the standings figure out a way for you to play the Pacers and maybe try and get a win against them, or the Pistons. But I'm looking at it like, as great as Dame is, it's exactly what you said in terms of the defensive side of the basketball, and they've tried something and it's just not worked out. And Brook Lopez is in the final year of his contract. He's 36, and he's not a unique player, but it's very hard to find a player that can protect the rim at the rate he does and space the floor on offense like he does. That's going to be very hard to replace. I don't know whether he's coming back next year or what his contract situation is, but that's going to be very hard to replace. Your point of attack defense, Dame Lillard can be targeted almost every possession down when we get to the playoffs. I know you said they're built for the playoffs, but it actually worries me like what their team's going to look like in the playoffs.
You're going to be a GM. You want to be a GM, okay? You're not replacing players. You have to play a brand of basketball that the basketball gods, if you will, honor and respect.
Defense.
Okay. When you have a team and you have a centerpiece like Giannis, okay, right now, this team is not built to take advantage of the rules of today's game. Now, they played a brand of basketball of a drop coverage, if you will, which allowed Brook Lopez to become a rim protector. Remember now, Brook Lopez, up until recently, was not what we would say was a defensive player, but they found a scheme in which they allowed him to suddenly take advantage of the rules of the way the game is played today. He would go into a drop coverage. All of their guards would fight over the top. They played defense even though they were getting screened. And then if you got past Giannis, if you got past your guard, which was Drew Holiday, that's an exceptional thing to do. Brook Lopez was there, and then Giannis could come and block the shot because he would defend without fouling.
Mm-hmm.
They were a very disciplined team. The teams in the league made an adjustment to what they were doing. You take away this all defensive player in Drew Holiday, and suddenly you haven't been able to recover with the scheme that could defend in which allowed them to become an NBA champion. So what needs to happen is the following. We're going to have to reassess this situation and get a scheme that either the current players can do it, or we're going to have to probably abide by a different way of playing, meaning you're probably going to have to shuffle the cards, reorganize your team, and begin to push the reset button. So the big question here is the following. Are we going to do that and with Giannis as the mainstay, or are they going to reshuffle the cards and maybe go in a different direction? Because Giannis is that good. He can still get you in the playoffs regardless whether this scheme is working or not. However, is this the scheme that they can play during the regular season and then transition into the postseason? Now, that's the question for them. This isn't like Brook Lopez is 36 years old. Brook Lopez can play. But can he play this brand of basketball in the regular season with this scheme? Because it's very hard for a big to be a terrific defender when the guards can't keep the ball in front of them.
Exactly.
Okay. So let's just call it what it is. Right now, they cannot defend on the perimeter because we know that Brook Lopez and Giannis are above average defenders in the back line. Bobby Portis is a pretty good defender.
He's solid.
Okay. So right now, they have an issue because the guards are attacking them, whether it's in screen roll, transition, one-on-one, isolation. And it's very hard when you're playing defense and you are always in a help and recover mode. That is the issue here. This isn't like Brook Lopez. Brook Lopez is fine. Giannis, incredible. Bobby Portis, when he's there, one of the best six men in the entire league. Multiple positions with the 4 and the 5. Kyle Kuzma, that's their answer to replace Chris Middleton. Okay, he's capable. Right now, on the perimeter, though, they have to figure out how to defend and then how they're going to play at a pace that's going to allow them to get out and get easy transition buckets.
In the fourth quarter of that game last night, they did not score a field goal in the final 5 minutes and 20 seconds. Not one. Giannis made 2 free throws, and that was the only points they had in the final 5 minutes and 20 seconds of that game.
But let's say what you really want to say, which is if you see something, then you should say it. However, I know that Giannis can do the following. He's capable of taking a team, putting it on his back, and carrying them through a series, whether it's versus Indiana, the Knicks, or whoever. He's capable. He showed it.
Yeah.
Damian Lillard is capable of carrying you on the offensive end. Now, when you make shots, that will make up for a lot of your mistakes. And you can't tell me they're not capable of winning 4 games against anyone in a series. Now, however, do they have glaring weaknesses? Absolutely. But Giannis is capable of winning 2 or 3 games by himself. Doc Rivers is a championship caliber coach, and you have players on their team that's capable. Damian Lillard is capable. He's done it. So no one can tell me otherwise. But if we're saying we're expecting them to be better than, what are they, the 5th seed now? I would agree with you. I agree with that.
Yeah.
But once the game slows down, those guys, they can put together a plan. They can zero in. You know, you play against a Golden State Warriors team, you got to get 1 out of 2. Of course you can do that. So they lose game 1, they win game 2, they go back home and win 2 games at home. They're up 3-1 in the series, and everyone's singing their praises. They are more than capable of doing that.
They lost both games to the Warriors this season, though.
That's fine, but scheduling matters. So that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. If you're telling me that what's the guy Pazmiski or whatever, Pajemski outplayed Damian Lillard, okay, he got him in game 1. Everyone is capable. That's why they're in the NBA. They're very good players up there. However, if you're telling me he can do that consistently over a 7-game series, I'll take those odds.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take that.
Mm-hmm.
But everyone's capable for 1 game, 2 games. But Damian Lillard is not one of the top 75 players. He's one of the top 75 players for a reason. And scheduling matters.
The other game I wanted to talk about last night was a thrilling game between the Clippers and the Cleveland Cavaliers. And BJ, is about less than a month to the playoffs. So now it's time for my yearly. If Kawhi Leonard can stay healthy, the Clippers could do something because they looked real good last night. But before we talk about Kawhi Leonard or James Harden, I want to talk about one of my favorite players and a player I think is one of the most underrated players in the entire NBA, Big Zoo. Ivica Zubac put up 28.
Why is he underrated? Like underrated to who? Everyone knows the guy is a good player.
No, I don't think people understand just how impactful he is.
Okay.
I think underrated to the fans. Underrated to a lot of the media. He put up 28 and 20 against a Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley frontcourt. He had an amazing game. And to be honest, he would have probably had a lot more than 28, but he just doesn't really get any foul calls from the referee. Ivica Zubac played fantastic. 8 offensive rebounds. That was huge for the Clippers in this one. Kawhi Leonard had 33 points. James Harden added 22 and 9 assists. They got 20 off the bench from Bogdanovic. They got 10 off the bench from Derrick Jones Jr. The Clippers looked real good last night against the Cleveland Cavaliers. How are you looking at this Clippers team ahead of the postseason, where they currently are the 8th seed, but there's not much separating it? You know, there's 1 game separating the 8th seed and 6th seed. The standings can fluctuate a lot between now and the end of the season. But do you think the Clippers have the chance to make the run? Because we all know if Kawhi Leonard's healthy, he can be one of the best players in the entire NBA when it comes to the postseason. But I'm looking at them right now and I'm thinking I wouldn't want to be facing them in a playoff series.
Well, I think you just said it. If Kawhi Leonard is healthy, if he's healthy, that's a big if. Okay, they are a very dangerous team. And they gave you a glimpse. They can score. Make no doubt about it. This team can score. They scored, 132 points last night. I happened to be watching this game. I mean, I think both teams were somewhere near 40 points in the first quarter or something like that. What they were able to score, I think Cleveland scored like 45 points or something in the first quarter, and then the Clippers scored like 37, 38. So these teams are very explosive, in particular the Clippers. I'm just happy to see Kawhi Leonard healthy. When he's healthy, he's one of the better players in the NBA. And as long as hopefully he'll be healthy for the remainder of the year, and they're a very dangerous club. I mean, if that's the 8th team in the Western Conference,
they started the
8th
season.
seed.
They started the season 0-4 at home, but since then they're 24-6 at the Intuit Dome. That wall seems to be working, but go back.
No, the wall isn't working. The players are working. Let's stop with the gimmicks. Real name, no gimmicks.
Let me get my jokes up. Let me get my jokes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, come on. Yeah, I mean, we can't make fun of the media and then we all of a sudden start participating in this nonsense. The wall is not working.
Well, what I really want to say is, though,
yes,
we're talking about Ivica Zubac, just go back there. What I love about this Clippers team is they're not afraid to throw the ball down low to the big fella for a post up, which you don't see too often in the NBA. And when the double comes, he finds the open shooter, and he has a size advantage on almost everyone he's matched up with, and he can go to work in the paint, and he can score the basketball. And I just love watching that because James Harden has this reputation around the league about being selfish or being a ball hog. I'm watching James Harden just throw the ball down low to the big fella, go to work. And I think that is, especially in this Western Conference, I think that's an advantage that they're going to have against most teams. I think that can work very
Well,
well.
I don't know if that's an advantage. And the reason I say that is because you're going to be playing against very, good players once the playoffs begin, right? And if they had Zubac versus Jokic in Denver, that's not an advantage for them. I don't think that's an advantage. However, I do like the the mixture of inside out combination that they have.
Yeah.
I do like the fact that Zubac he's very active
What I
in
mean is
setting
they're not
screens.
reliant on one style. They're not reliant on one method to score the basketball.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. I mean, anytime you have James Harden and Kawhi Leonard, I mean, you have options. I mean,
Yeah.
you have a guy that operates in the mid range in Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard is one of the best, if not the best, in the NBA when he's healthy in the mid range. Him and Giannis from the mid range. You have James Harden, who is an elite offensive player, isolation screen roll. And then all of a sudden now you have another space on the floor which no one really defends anymore, which is a low post threat. And they keep the defense honest by making sure that the big fella gets touches. I respect that. Ty Lue and staff, I respect that. When I watch this team, the thing that I respect more than anything watching this team is the defensive effort that James Harden is giving. And I want to credit their staff for that because James Harden is playing as well as I've seen him play in his career at this stage. And it all starts on the defensive end. They have James Harden giving second and third efforts on the defensive end. So where suddenly now you're taking a look at this team going, Kawhi Leonard, when he plays, and that's been the problem. When he plays,
Mhm.
he imposes his will on the team because defensively, we know he is a defensive player of the year candidate if he's healthy. Then all of a sudden, James Harden, who has been their best player, is suddenly playing with the same responsibility. That to me has been the biggest achievement in watching this Clippers. They're all defending, they're playing together, they have offensive weapons, and when both of their guys are playing, this is what you get. So that's going to be a tough matchup for someone.
Mhm.
They could easily be somewhere in the 6th seed, or they could be in the 8th seed. However, Clippers versus OKC, I don't know about that. I'm going to pick OKC because of the consistency, but Kawhi Leonard and James Harden, that's pretty good.
And Norm
Zubac,
Powell's been
that's
fantastic this season.
that's Norm Powell
Danovich
could
is
have
one
been
of the best players coming
he
off the
could have been an
bench.
all-star this year. Norm
Yep.
Powell could have easily. So that's pretty good. So I am concerned for the number one seed if the Clippers are the A seed. That's going to be a tough out because they have experience, they're explosive, they're well coached, and they're playing unselfishly, especially on the defensive end. So give the Clippers credit. I've said it all year. I thought this team has been playing excellent basketball, and now they're healthy. Now that's been the key. We're keeping our fingers crossed, but we say this, seem like we say this every year. If Kawhi is healthy, this is a dangerous club. And they have been playing all year. And I think they've learned how to play without Kawhi. Clearly, they're better with Kawhi. And if they can stay healthy, you know what? This could be a surprise team in the league.
Mhm. That's
This could be a surprise team in the playoffs.
definitely over the last kind of 7 games, they've had a fantastic stretch. I think they've got the fifth best defense in the NBA. They've got the second best net rating in the NBA. They've been playing fantastic basketball. They did it last night without Ty Lue or Jeff Van Gundy there as well. Both of those guys had to miss the
Yeah.
game for whatever reasons they had.
Yep.
I'm really liking what I'm seeing from the Clippers. I'm really liking it. And if I was in the Western Conference, I'd be real worried about facing them. Even if they finish as the 7th seed, the Rockets would have to worry about that. The 3 seed, obviously Jokic is a tough matchup for anyone, but I'll be worried about that too. So, you know, I'm excited to see where this all leads
Right.
because it's about time the Clippers had some good luck. The Clippers they call them cursed.
Maybe it's the wall, Mo.
Maybe. But maybe this is the year they get some good fortune with Kawhi Leonard's health, and he can actually stay healthy for a playoff run. Because when was the last time we saw him healthy for a whole playoff run? He left
That's
holding the Larry
exactly.
O'Brien Trophy in Toronto. Like, I don't think we've seen a healthy playoff run from him. I guess the bubble, but the bubble doesn't really count. So I'm excited for the Clippers. I really am. I do need to get over to the most technologically confusing arena in the NBA for you, BJ. I need to get out there to the Intuit Dome. But I'm excited to see what the Clippers can do in this postseason as the season continues to roll on. And as the season continues to roll on, we're going to be right here breaking it down for you guys. So make sure you subscribe to the show on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast from, because we'll be back tomorrow talking more NBA. Appreciate it as always, BJ. And
Appreciate you.
I will catch you tomorrow. So until
Okay.
then, get buckets.